Now, I also want to welcome Natalie du Toit. She probably, obviously, doesn't need any introduction, but we are very glad that she is here today. Also, having taken on the role as a Da Vinci ambassador recently, we are very proud for you associating with us and allowing us to associate with you. And so part of the reason for Natalie being here is her interest not just in sport, of which she have proven to the world that she's a champion of, but she's also embarking on a journey to, I almost want to say, to broaden her brand presence as a champion within business. So we are glad that she joined the journey with Da Vinci also as a student. She's also joined us in studying business management, but we're very pleased that you are here today and to share with us a bit of your ideas around sport and management and leadership. Okay. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. I think just to start, I mean, a lot of you know a little bit about swimming, or do any of you not know anything about swimming? There's a few that are petrified of water, but I think swimming was a tool that enabled me to be the person who I am, the person who a lot of you have got to know. And it's been a journey for me of someone from quite a poor background. And I'm going to mention this in terms of how far I've grown and how much I've learned along the way. I started obviously swimming when I was 6 years old. Absolutely hated the water before that. And one day I just decided that was it. I was going to get in the pool and swim. And I had an older brother who was a swimmer. So jumping into the pool, I took to swimming quite quickly. And I started doing well, and it became a bit of a vicious cycle. So the better you do, the harder you work, the more you want to work hard, and the better you do, and the better you do, etc. And so the cycle goes on. Obviously, we go through challenges, and there were moments when I didn't do well at all, and it was, what can we change? Now, as a youngster, you have a coach, you have your family, and you have your support system, and you believe in what your coach says or the programs that your coach gives you. As you get older, you start questioning a little bit more, and a lot more happens. But I was set up in a nice setup in that I started very slowly. I started with a junior coach. I then moved to a senior coach only when I was 14 years old. So from 1 hour sessions per day to 3 hours, 4 hour sessions per day at the age of 14. And we take on something that we call you would then master in a stroke. So I became a butterfly swimmer and an individual medley swimmer. And at 14, I went through probably one of the most grueling or terrible times of my life. I just qualified for Commonwealth Games, and I went off to Kuala Lumpur in at the Commonwealth Games. And one of the youngest of the team, and you always have the critics that say you shouldn't be there because you're too young and you have no experience. And then you have those saying, no, but you need to get experience. And I actually missed my race. So the first day of competition, and from that missing my race, I had a lot of media hype. And I think as a 14-year-old, I felt like an absolute failure. And I think everybody goes through patches where you feel like a failure. And this is supposed to be the first step into my career. From then, I must admit, I didn't know how to give everything that I had in swimming anymore, because that's what swimming became. It became my life. And I came back after Commonwealth Games. I swam extremely badly. My coach had done interviews, and he'd said that I'd missed my race due to human error, but people picked it up as woman error. So the stories were quite gruesome as a youngster. But coming up to 16 years old, and the way in which I learned how to cope with that situation was all I needed to do was be in that pool, and I needed to carry on with what I was doing. If I loved it, if I didn't love it, it was to get back in. And I think from the age of 14, I really started to learn how to get through bad patches, and that it was okay to go through a bad patch. And every day I would wake up and I would say, I don't want to be here, but I would be there. And I would train through it, and I would work through it. And going through challenges at 14, it took me just over a year to come through the bad moments. It wasn't just the failure, but I was also told that I might not be able to swim in that competition. So it was challenging. 2000 came up, and you're 16 years old, and everybody's now saying that no, but you're back on times, and you're this champion. You can make the Commonwealth, the Olympic Games, and you can be one of the youngest to compete for South Africa. And I must admit that I never ever saw swimming as a pedestal. I never saw it as, I want to go to the Olympics. Everyone else told me that, but for me it was to climb the ladder slowly. So every year I improved times, and every year I wanted to improve times. And every year the qualification criteria actually dropped. So 4-year cycle was quite easy for swimmers. That is quite easy, and it teaches the person a lot in that you can plan, and the more you plan, the better you get at planning. So 2000, I just missed out on the Olympic Games by 0.03 of a second. And again, in 2 years, you go through a challenging scenario. How do you get through this again? All you know is that you've been through something before, and now you start meeting people, and people start telling you, but there's a lot of well-known people that have gone through where they've gone bankrupt and they've made a success again. And it's possible to do that. So you keep going, and you carry on going through life. And 2001, being involved in a motorbike accident and losing half a leg. Now, I'm telling you my story because it's not just positive, it's not just happy. And it's how you get through the negative and the bad to reach the positive. Having a motorbike accident, I was fortunate to never ever have people around me that said I would never be able to do anything. They would say to me, let's try. If it is putting on a prosthetic leg and putting on a sandal on a shoe, and every time your foot comes through, the sandal goes flying, it was go to the hardware store, buy Velcro, and Velcro your shoe into your slip-slop. So again, going through all these things, you learn lessons of how to cope, and that nothing is impossible, that you can do anything. And I've gone through times where I've swum extremely bad times and suddenly been able to swim the most fantastic time. Going through my motorbike accident, learning to swim again, I'd lost all muscle, but I'm the type of person that I have to give everything. I have to give what I know, what I want to know. I question a lot, and my questioning sometimes comes across as I'm questioning the person rather than how to do what we're doing. So I know my coach used to shout at me a lot because I used to question too much, but swimming for me became about feeling. It became about how do I get better, not just by the coach, but how do I for myself, when I'm at a competition and my coach isn't there, how do I feel in the water? How can I feel better? And to the extent that I very, very seldom did anything different on tour to what I did at home. So I never slept at home because I was always too busy. I was playing every sport and doing music at school. But when I was on tour, I never used to sleep in the afternoon. So it was very important for me to keep the same schedule, to keep busy, to keep going, to keep learning, to keep growing. And getting through onto a prosthetic leg, I learned how to walk in about 4 hours. My prosthetist to this day is quite amazed because I'd get a new leg and I'd be able to walk upstairs and downstairs even though I haven't for the past 20 years. So it is challenging when you look at something, but you've got to look at it and say, let's see if we can do it. If I fall, I fall, but I can get up and I can keep on again. And swimming gave me the platform to allow me to realize that you can be positive. And in the negative moments, you can create that, or take that positive moment from swimming, and I can put it into my life and override the negative. So sometimes it's about blocking out that negative. Now, speaking to Prof a bit earlier in the week and discussing, what is the spice to being successful? What is the spice to being a personality? I was fortunate, and when I had my accident, I met a few people that were very influential, and they gave me opportunities. And I met one particular person who said to me, Natalie, I've been watching you, I've seen you around, and let's try and brand you. And the brand wasn't about, values. It was, who are you? And let's brand you according to who you are. So I never ever had to go out there and make something different of myself. I go out there, I'm still me. I still believe in hard work, teamwork, no arrogance. I believe in getting out there and giving everything that you possibly have. And I guess learning from missing a race to missing out on qualifying for Olympics to having a motorbike accident, each one completely different, but each one you treat it exactly the same. Now, getting back into swimming, and sorry, my iPad died, so I'm using my iPhone here because I put a few points down, but I think I've put a few pointers of of what my life has contained. And point is that I've been taught, but I didn't really actually know that I was doing them. So when I was taught them, it was natural. And sometimes I try and explain to people to try and do this on a daily basis. And those that you can't do, it's to go out there and to every day remind yourself, to write it down, to so I'm going to share with you. Do you have something that you know that you're good at? It can be, for me it was swimming, and I lived through swimming. I've obviously gone through sports, and I'm now in business, which we'll go there now. But do you learn something new each day? It can be a dictionary term, it can be something someone says, it can be something completely different. How do you handle situations? Are you able to know where you make mistakes and be able to stand back and question it and go forward? Do you have the ability to change quickly? Now, this was probably my worst, and I used to be an absolute train wreck when I had to change anything or my program changed. But I've had to learn to step back and look at the situation and say, you know what, it's okay. I've got nothing on, I can do it. It's okay that I was prepared, but I will be prepared later on. To be aware of who I am and what I put out there at all times. And again, it's always been me. I've always gone out there and said, why do I need to smoke? Why do I need to smoke? Because it's not going to do anything for me. Why would I want to try alcohol? Because, I can have fun. And I still remember the evening, and those that are drunk don't remember the evening. But it's to be aware of who you are. And sometimes, you can go through bad moments, and you can have your bad, what would you call them, the bad traits about yourself. But people should know about that, and you should get your story out there before everybody else sees it. And to see yourself as a brand. So we talk about being a brand ambassador for Da Vinci. To look at Da Vinci and what it stands for, and also what I want to achieve. And that together combines and creates that ambassadorship. So in other words, you're an ambassador, how you dress, how you speak. And for me, that was always important from a little girl. I used to go out on swimming tours, and it was important for me to always give of my best. It was always important for me to never get into trouble, because I knew that I had to be number one in South Africa, and if I got into trouble, I possibly wouldn't get chosen for another team again. So it was always important to do that. Obviously, have a bit of fun on the side, but be careful what you do. Now, we all talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and everybody knows it. For me, it sort of became more prominent later on in my swimming career, but it was important to go through each stage. And for me, it was to divide Maslow's hierarchy of needs into the different categories. So I have it in my personal life, I have it in business, I have it in swimming, and that all comes together to create one hierarchy. And for me, that was important, because if you say, for instance, on the bottom level, and you want to move from the physiological needs right up to, say, safety needs. In swimming, I might have surpassed both levels, but in my personal life, I might still be stuck on the first level. However, I've already moved to the second level, which means I have the ability to do that in the other sector of my life, and I can fall back on each one when I need it. So that was my way of coping with challenging times, with tough times, and it still is. Sometimes I just block it out completely until I'm ready to deal with it, or I deal with it right there and then. So getting back into swimming and meeting these people, finding out, I'm not just a swimmer, but I can have a brand as well, because that's who I am, was very challenging, because at school I was very seldom at school, and I was probably there about 3 months of the year. And so I learned how to write exams by asking everybody a few pointers before their exam and writing it down on my paper before the exam commenced. But I went through life, and it was always about, let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can pass. Let's see if we can get better marks. And going through the accident, coming back to school, and everybody said, are you going to swim? When are you going to get back on a leg? Because it took me about a year to get back on a leg. And then I started doing well at swimming, and I started wanting to be an able-bodied swimmer, because that's what I knew. And I didn't know anything about disabled sport. And I was then thrown into disabled sport because everybody said it's medals for South Africa. And being thrown into that actually allowed and opened up a completely different side of things. And you get to interact with disabled people, and you get to interact and see how they cope, what they go through. And you actually realize that a lot of disabilities go through very similar things. So if someone that has a half a foot missing will go through the same issues as what I do. So it's balance. It's how do you find a shoe to fit. It's being able to run. Learning how to run again right from the beginning. Obviously, I don't have a knee, so it's a bit more challenging because mine's a little bit more mechanical that comes into play. But I had this one person in hospital, and I remember him coming to sit down, and he always said to me, he's run the Comrades Marathon, he's run the Two Oceans Marathon, and I had seen no disability. And this was the very person that said to me, he had to learn how to run again, his shoes don't fit. And I laughed because he looked like he had an elephant's foot. And I still remember when he left saying to him, how can he come into my room and say to me, I can do it if he can do it? Because we're completely different. But I realized over the years that we're completely different, but at the same time, we can also get over the hurdles and we can achieve what we still want to achieve. So you can keep your individuality, your diversity, and you can still go for your dreams and goals. Now, again, my physio, my family, they all said to me, let's do this. We can do anything. My coach took me aside one day, and I was really struggling with breaststroke. And, as you snap your feet together, the water's expelled and it propels you forwards. And my coach said to me, Natalie, just put your head in a little earlier. And again, being the type of person I am, I questioned him a few weeks later, and he said to me, he knew I could swim breaststroke like that because when he was younger, they were made to do one-legged breaststroke drills. And I thought this was probably the most stupid excuse under the sun. But it allowed me to achieve a medal at the Paralympic Games and allowed me to achieve, my end result of being able to swim every event possible in swimming. So I knew that I never ever had to go back to try and repeat anything. So I started swimming the disabled, and again, you go through challenges because you want to swim able-bodied, the disabled fraternity doesn't want you, and because you swimming disabled, the able-bodied fraternity doesn't want you. So to a degree, when drug testing comes into play, they were arguing against each other. So I never ever got drug tested outside of competition because they didn't know where I belonged. Now, we talk about being put in a box, and for me, it's never been about being put in a box, and I think that's also what Da Vinci is about. It's about thinking, it's about growing, and that's what my life has been about. It's thinking, growing, and being the best that you can be. And again, getting into that pool, getting into the water. 2007 was a year before Olympics in Beijing, and I had two coaches coming up to me and saying, Natalie, the 10 kilometer will be an event at the Olympic Games. And I looked at them and I thought they were absolutely mad, because who swims 2 hours of a race? Going from a 5-minute race to a 2-hour race is absolutely insane. A year before the Olympics, not possible. And I must admit, again, because I'm quite sort of the scientific side of things, I had read a lot of information on swimming and about how the kilometers that athletes do adds up. And when those add up to a specific amount, you will be at your peak. And I knew at the age of 20 I'd started slowly, so by 24, 28 I should be peaking, which is not what the Australians do, but a lot of what the other athletes do. And I must admit, I said to my coach about 3 months into it, I said, let's try a 5 kilometer. And he said, Natalie, your training is good enough, we can do the 5 kilometer. And I won it in South Africa. And he said to me, well, why don't you try the 10 kilometers? So I went off to China and I raced a 10 kilometer. I led for 8 kilometers. And 7 girls passed me in the last 2 kilometers, which was not the nicest thing, and I think quite degrading as well. But I realized that I couldn't be the person that I always was, because now I had a slight disability. I couldn't pick up speed at the rate at which everybody else picked up speed, so I had to do something slightly different. And again, I only had a few months to do it. I came back to South Africa, and my coach said, okay, well, let's work on a bit more speed endurance. Let's see if we can get your speed endurance up. So the last 2 kilometers, you can keep pace. Now that must have done wonders for me, because 2008, the very next race was in May, and that was the Olympic trials. And all I knew was that I had to be top 10 in the world to qualify for the Olympics. So South Africa doesn't have a criteria, but I was told that I could only go as a South African team if I qualify as top 10. And again, it's a race, many different conditions. So you can have wind, you can have choppy water, it can be hot, it can be cold. I knew I was going to be in Spain. It was down a river. We have to feed, so there's a pack of 51 girls that at any point in time can stop you, can punch you, can do anything. Your goggles can fill up with water, and you have to go into that race knowing that you've prepared well and be calm. And the calmness probably gave me a bit of the, what would you call it?
Edge.
The edge on a lot of people. And I was chosen as number 51. So we line up on a pontoon, and I was chosen as the last person. So that meant that we do 4 laps at 2.5 kilometers. And in the start, we all dive in, and we stand right next to each other. So it's a possibility that when you dive in, you get punched, you get hit, your goggles fill up with water, you get cut, and you start panicking. And this time I had an opportunity to take my time to move into the inside of the course, because the inside of the course is the shortest route possible. And obviously in water, you're swimming against a current or swimming against something, you'd want to swim the shortest route. So I sat around about 15th, 16th, and I had this plan that the last sort of 5 kilometers I would move up into top 10. And if I was in top 10, then I could keep it for the last 2.5 kilometers, because generally, as the girls swim each round, we go faster and the pack will break towards the 3/4 mark. Hopefully my speed endurance would come in to play. And 7.5 kilometers, we came round on the second lap, actually the first buoy of the third lap. And I remember going around the buoy, I got pulled back a bit. And as I went around the buoy, I realized that we'd already broken away from the pack. So it happened a lot sooner than what we'd anticipated. But all I knew was that I was going to have to give everything and finish the last 2.5 kilometers in an absolute sprint. And coming into the last 50 meters, I looked back again and realized that 4 of us had pulled away from the rest of the pack. Now, for 2.5 kilometers, there's always the chance that a group can swim faster than 4 people. So again, all these are going through your mind during a race. How do you cope with that? Now, everything that I'd gone through in life, I think I used in that actual swim to get me through that as well, so that by the last 100 meters, I had nothing left, but I could touch the touchpad and be top 10. So again, it's questions that we ask. It's what is that one factor? And for me, that factor is to never give up. It's to go through the bad patches and to get back on the horse and do it, and get back as soon as possible. And that's the way that you would cope through anything, through a motorbike accident, through missing a race, and moving from sport. I came and I spoke to Da Vinci for about 1.5 years before I eventually joined Da Vinci. But it was an interesting time, because I found myself completing swimming and what we would call completing absolute everything, the top of the pyramid. And what do you do now? I've trained 8 hours a day for the last 4 years of my swimming career. I did motivational speaking, I had sponsors, I ran 3 calendars in one. I had no time to figure out what I possibly could be good at. And for 1.5 years, I mean, we had lots of talks and what can I do, what can't I do? And eventually I was given an opportunity, and this opportunity was to do something that I didn't know if I could do it or not. And I jumped into it. And I realized that I absolutely hated what I was doing, and I wasn't very good at it. But that led to something that the company didn't have, and I went into. And again, it's how opportunities lead to opportunities lead to opportunities. And from people to people to people. Now, a lot of people say to me, you know, you had an accident. Was it good or bad? And I say, you know, in many ways, I wish I had my other leg or my own leg. But I've met so many people, and I've had so many opportunities that I don't believe I would ever have had if I hadn't lost my leg. And it's not to look back and say, if only, but it's to say, how can I move forward and how can I go from there? Now, I talk very positively, negatively, but life, unfortunately, is 365 days in a year, and 365 days can be long, and you can have those days in which you go home and you cry, and you have bad moments, but then you also have days in which, you know, you somehow just turn around, and all that bad just becomes positive. And I've seen it more than once in my life, and to each one of you, it's to get out there and to have those days. It's to remember the sunsets and sunrises. Every day of my life, I trained from 5 in the morning till 8, 9, 10. As the years went on, I saw a sunrise. And every day it was, wake up, it's a new day. And you go to bed and you think, I didn't achieve what I wanted to, but tomorrow's another day. Let's get up and we can do it. So every day you have to mechanically work on something, be it your studies, be it your life. And again, for me to move into studying was challenging because I've been to universities, I've been stopped for autographs. I don't think I've attended too many lectures because of that. Photos. I was always on tours, and I haven't had the best experience at university. And you have all these doubts about yourself. How do you turn a doubt into a positive? And I think, for me, it was the first 2 or 3 months. I was very shaky, but started to get through things and realized that everything that I've learned in my swimming career, I can put into business and I can put into studying. And again, we come back to Maslow's hierarchy, and somehow all of those pictures have fitted together. And it's quite amazing to see all of them fit together, but it takes a long time. I started swimming when I was 6. I went to the Olympics when I was 28. So what's that, 14 years? I can't calculate. 12 years. And it's a long time, but if you put your mind to it, and if you're diligent about it, you can achieve absolutely anything. So for me, it's about mixing sport into business. And everybody says to you, but you've achieved in swimming. So of course in business you'll achieve, but you don't often know what you know in swimming or what you've learned. So you still have to learn that. And I found it through studying. I found the ability to take what I've learned and figure out what I've learned in sport and put that through to business. So again, to other sports people, it's not about coaching, but it's about teaching them the life lessons and teaching them about lessons that anything is possible. Now, I have one challenge, and that is I used to work in a company, and I used to work quite long hours, and there were 1 or 2 other girls that I was supposed to work with, and they said to me, but it's weekend. You can't work on weekends. It's my weekend, it's mine. And what I know from sport is that I need to do it, and I need to solve the problem. I need to do it. No matter how many hours it takes, I'm going to do it. So along the way, you meet people that are against you. You meet people that are with you. And it's to keep finding people that you can learn from, that you can grow from in every sector as well. Anybody have any questions?
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. Any questions? Yes.
You had so many accomplishments in your swimming career. What stands out to you as the highlight of that career?
I think a lot of people will probably agree with me, but I don't really single out a highlight, because every highlight there have been challenges, and to be able to get over those challenges is a highlight itself. I can look back on coming 4th at the Olympic trials, and I could say that that might be one of the best, but it's because I had people that were against me. I had people that were there for me. I had training issues. I had can we do this? It's only a year to go. We only had a specific time period. So it's all the challenges that you go through make it that much more special and that much more significant. And yes, you have a medal, but if you had to say to me or show me the medal, it's not about the medal, but the emotions that came with that and the emotional attachment. And I always say that no matter what bad patch you go through, it's to bring that emotional attachment of feeling the good can let you get through the bad at any point in time.
It's quite an interesting perspective. Almost if I sense, she says, and every day there's highlight. Yeah, you always discount politics. Politics come in everywhere. And I won't come out with all the story because I know that it can't make a difference. When it makes a difference, then I will. But for me, it was the ability to achieve a dream and a long life dream and finish that off, so that at the age of 28, I could move out and say there's nothing more that I can actually do. Difficult to say in business because there's always more money to earn. There's always a higher position and always more knowledge.
But in swimming, I really have achieved everything. So I couldn't stay there any longer. And I wish that some others could experience that, because it's actually, people would probably say it's probably the best feeling, but it's actually terrible, because you hit a complete trough and a complete low. And what do? How do you, everyone says that you're successful, but you're not, because you're no longer there. So what do? And you literally build yourself up from beginning. And as I said, it's a daily fight. You've got to keep positive, you've got to keep going.
Would you make a good coach?
Me. I come from old school, so coaching wasn't something that I ever wanted to do. For me, it's more about showing people their abilities and allowing them to realize their abilities and their ability to dream and their ability to achieve goals. Very tough. I know my coach always used to say to us, if we didn't do certain things, we needed to get out the pool and go home. I would be one of those coaches. And again, that's kind of what I believe in, to be successful as well. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for your story. It's very motivating to quite a lot of people, including me, though. You made a very interesting statement here, and trying to understand the implication. That is, you said that you would have loved to have your legs, but somehow, if you are considering that if you hadn't lost your leg, you wouldn't have met as many number of people and the opportunities that come with it and all this stuff. I want to understand the importance of that statement, and what should somebody learn from that? And there was one day I was having a discussion with one lady somewhere who also did some studies somewhere, and she said that there was a study that was published sometime where they came to a conclusion that young boys who lost their parents at the age of 12, either one or both of their parents at the age of 12, ended up growing to become more of greater achievers than those who actually live with their parents throughout the rest of their lives. I asked her, he said, do you mean that for us to have achievement, maybe somebody gets to 12, we kill off his or her parents? He laughed, So that's the point, some of these things, I don't know. What should somebody make out of this statement that you made?
I was very fortunate that as a swimmer, nobody knew me until I'd had my accident. I was number one in South Africa. I was, on the South African team, senior team. I'd, qualified for Commonwealth Games, but it's a sport in South Africa that not anybody knows. I then had a motorbike accident, and media started to get to know about it. And what happened was media then started to get to know who I was. And that's when I talk about brand, because I was just me. I hadn't changed. My achievements hadn't changed. I hadn't changed. And through all of that, people started to take note of swimming, take note of, that there are athletes out there that can achieve. The reason for me saying that I wish I had my other leg was a lot more, I think, on land-based rather than swimming. Because in swimming, I wasn't allowed to use my prosthesis. I had to get in and I had to just swim. And there was no question, I couldn't say I only have one leg, therefore I can't keep up with everybody. I had qualifying criteria and I had to stick to those qualifying criteria. On land, it's a little bit more challenging, because as the years go on, you actually forget how your leg felt, how your leg walked, how your leg did everything. And as the years go on, you miss it more, and it becomes, I think, a little bit more sad. But at the end of the day, each day you have to say, this is who I am, and I've got to move on from there. So my swimming career basically, also got my name out there, but the way in which I was branded on values, I did motivational speaking. I believe in a lot of charity work and giving back what you learn and what you've been taught. And that can be lessons in swimming, it can be lessons in business, can be whatever lessons it is. And one of the reasons why I actually am an ambassador for Da Vinci, is to be able to share with people the lessons that one goes through. But at the end of the day, I think everybody still wishes that, they could feel and feel what they used to feel. I wish I could just run down the road when I'm in a hurry, but I can't, because I'd have to have a different leg, because I can't run with this leg because it's not insured. So there's a lot of things that you have to always deal with. The computer also doesn't read fast enough, so the minute I start walking too fast, it actually goes stiff. And you always have to travel with 2-3 legs, and now with the new laws, you can only take one bag and you have to pay for the second one, even though it's a leg. Your golf clubs can go for free, but because it's a leg, so there are some times in life that you wish that something could just not have to be so complicated. But again, as I always use swimming as a scenario that was my ultimate, because I could just be myself. I could swim against a clock. I could work as hard as I can. I can achieve what I can. There was no one that could say anything against that. And that's when I talk about, the brand, and people got to know me. And I met people because my name got out there. And I started doing motivational speaking. I've never been for a lesson, but a school phoned me and asked me if I could do a talk. And from there, people heard about it. So it's interesting how opportunities grow, and how opportunities have allowed me to live, and allowed me to grow from strength to strength. And I come back to coming from a poor family. I always vowed to myself that I would never ever go through what I went through as a child. I wanted to go to school, be able to pay for it, rather than having to get a 50% academic scholarship, a 50% sports scholarship to pay for everything. So we all go through challenges, and it's how we use those challenges. And very fortunate to also have a manager who doesn't really manage any other athlete, but she took me aside and she said, "Natalie, you are a company, you are a brand. We will manage you accordingly. You will run as a company." And so my swimming and everything was managed as a company is managed. And still is to this day. So, it's sticking to values, it's sticking to, your competencies. And to share with you, I've never achieved anything on my own. From someone taking my leg from the start to the finish, to my coach, to sponsors, to people, who cheered me on, to the whole of South Africa, basically. They're what got me through my swimming career and allowed me to be that success. And because I was that success, I want to be a success again.
Thank you very much. Joshua?
It was very motivating. One thing that comes through, and I think you've been saying it in the end, your authenticity. The question is, you came from that background and suddenly you were thrown into fame and visibility. Did it give you challenges? How did you manage that?
Again, it's a story of, I was very fortunate, I think, that I do come from the background that I do come from. So I know what it feels like. I've been, the people around me, very fortunate to always say to me, "Natalie, don't ever take anything for granted. If it's a sponsorship, we're going to go out and we're going to ask. And in return, we give. We give 3 times more than what we ever receive." And that was something that I learned right from the word go. And that is something that allowed me to stay grounded and stay who I am. I've never got anything just for the sake of getting everything. I've also been too scared of making friends because they would want to get something for free, and I don't like to ask people, for free things. So at the end of the day, it put me out of my comfort zone. So again, they always say that Mahatma Gandhi and Hitler they were both people in power. And they both had the opportunity to be positive or negative. One chose positive and one chose negative. And each person has the ability to choose that. And again, it's you either look up to a Nelson Mandela, a Mahatma Gandhi, or you look up to a Hitler. So that's what's important. And I come back to the fact that I'm a very questioning person. And every day I think I shouldn't have said this, or I should have said that, or I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that. But again, my choices are my choices, and I can't go back on them. I believe that you can make a mistake once. I often make them twice. But the third time, it's sort of learn from, and you have to learn from and to walk away.
Oh, sorry, do you also want to ask a question?
I will, but please.
Professor Benny Anderson touched on the issue of you considering coaching or whether you're a good coach or something. I think my submission is really almost bordering around that, in view of the fact that we live in a very unequal society, and it's very materialistic, and mostly youth think that to achieve success, you gotta take the short road. I'm fascinated by the fact that there seems to be a correlation between sport and business. The tenacity, the endurance that is needed in sport has a great lesson for anyone who wants to achieve anything of importance in life. Perhaps your life story could be of great importance to those who want to achieve great strides in business, especially the nascent entrepreneurs in this country, which is very materialistic, and it looks at people, and if you get into business, people want you to succeed tomorrow. And I'm looking at you training 8 hours a day. There's a lot of sacrifice being put in there, and it takes a number of years. And that, to me, resonates with business. It actually speaks to the issue of how business people have to think and realize, their dreams at the end of the day. Perhaps the coaching part could pave way for nascent entrepreneurs in that aspect.
I think that's a very powerful link that you're making.
I think just to share a bit on that, and I think just as I started at Da Vinci, and somehow I just got this idea spark, and Da Vinci was also part of it in helping me find what it is that I possibly could go into. And you talk about the link between sport and business and being an entrepreneur. Now, swimming is very much, people call it an individual sport, but it's actually not. It is a team sport, and as I said, I would never go to training on my own. So hence why I do not have a gym membership, because I will never go to the gym on my own, and it's a waste of money for me. But what I've learned through that is, and once I've found what I possibly could be good at, so I jumped into social media and PR and marketing, and it's something that is completely bold. It is, it's out there. People are skeptical of it. Some people have bought into it. I follow trends. I follow all of that, and again, being able to swim has allowed me to push these barriers, because it's not easy to go out there and try and say to people, I'm now in business, and they go, no, but you're the swimmer. And you have to push through those boundaries, as well as the boundaries within business at the moment and the current economy and economic climate. So it is challenging, but it's about pushing through slowly but surely, and eventually getting there. But again, I'm the type of person that also procrastinates a lot. And eventually I just decide that that's it, I'm going to do it, and we do it. But it is something that you can take what you learn in sport and put it into business. And the same process in which I became a butterfly swimmer, an individual medley swimmer, and I qualified for Commonwealth and I qualified for Olympics, it's the same sort of style that I'm using to go forward in social media and PR and marketing. And again, using a bit of the tool of who I am as well, and trying to bring a different element to it. And hopefully, people would enjoy that as well. So, but yeah, you always have to fight against those that don't believe it.
Let's take a last question, Desiree.
Yeah, Nat, I'm glad that you chose Da Vinci, because I too had my skepticism, but until I was really convinced. So the thing that what I like the way, the fondness of the pronunciation of your inevitable kind of way your coach took you through the journey, because what I'm writing on is the athlete's experience. It's exactly, and you speak of your continuous development and the Kaizen approach. I remember speaking to you and your manager at one stage, and you said, it's now business, this is after your accident, and you said, this is exactly what it is. And your statement with regards to the kind of principles of business and sport. So what Da Vinci is now helping with a master's in sports coaching in perhaps 3 categories, which never happened even in South Africa or in Africa. And Ben has actually helped me to move it into changing the landscape of coaching. And it's of course the impact of your experience that's going to help us as well. So thank you for sharing all of this.
I want to conclude and say, if I think of Natalie, I think of something of beauty. And if I think of us as a people, I think of something of beauty. But in a way, Natalie has managed to say, what is my beauty? And I think what I appreciate of you sharing today with us is how you articulate what is of beauty. Because as we sit here as a people, we are all beautiful. But we just know who we are. And we seem not to share who we are. And in a way, as a brand ambassador, we're putting Natalie straight in the centerfold and say, well, you're beautiful, so tell us about your beautifulness. And the way she does it, I hope will be a way that people would look at Da Vinci. Because at Da Vinci, we would like to look at all of ourselves at Da Vinci and those who associate with us as beautiful. But we have to talk about that beauty. And we have to embrace what is beautiful and talk about it. And that's what I hope will be the lasting message, Natalie, is that you almost personify talking about the beautifulness of being Natalie. And that hopefully all of us will get closer to our beautifulness and share that with the world. So thank you for joining us on this journey and of sharing this. There's a last thing, there's a gift. And there's a mystery gift in this. And as you may know or may not know, this is something that has been designed by Leonardo da Vinci in 1872. The Western world, or the world at last, the modern world, only managed to make this in reality, not as a concept. Took the concept and they designed the helicopter. So therein lies the clue for solving this problem. What you will be playing here with eventually became the helicopter. But if you solve it, you can send us a WhatsApp message or what.
I'll give it to my aviators in class.
And then you can say it took me 2 minutes, or it took me 20 minutes, or it took me 2 hours. Doesn't matter. It's okay. But we hope you can solve this and appreciate the gift. But thank you for sharing today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and to all of you, let's enjoy the time with Natalie. We can have some drinks and some eats out there, and let's enjoy the time together. Thank you very much, and see you in a month's time. Thanks.